Okay, and recording.
Okay, we're debating about how capitalism affects the contemporary music industry. The left side are arguing that it's against, and they're saying that it affects it in a bad way, and the right are saying that it affects it in a good way. So, turn it on Sam.
Yes, thank you. It's fair to note that prior to capitalism, most musicians' work came as a direct result of having a patron in the form of either a monarch or the church or any person in nobility. So what we think capitalism has done is it has created a structured industry within which various career opportunities are created, from a radio presenter to dancers on tour or even tour bus drivers. More people are employed in the industry as a direct result, and not just the composers of the works, as would be the case. By making music a readily consumable commodity, capitalism also affords the musician a pension plan in the form of the royalties they can earn for the music they produce. So you're not just being paid for your live performance, you're actually having ongoing income, residual income for the future. So we think capitalism is a positive influence, has a positive influence on contemporary music.
Yoshi?
Despite careers created and financial gain that Tanya spoke about, we believe that capitalism also has some very negative effects on the music industry. Browdle and Delander argue that through the oligopolistic control of the three main record labels, competition is reduced and so is diversity. This is an inevitable characteristic of capitalism and its tendency to favour a few. This goes strongly against Marxist and socialist ideas that there should be a more cooperative ownership of means of production, and this would result in a greater equality of the market. Marxism also argues that capitalism creates a very limited culture. This masks inequalities, it pacifies the proletariat, and it maintains the hegemony which is exerted by the bourgeoisie. This ties in with the theories of Adorno, who states that standardization and pseudo-individualism pacifies people and restricts them from questioning those in power. Therefore, we would argue that capitalism has a negative effect by limiting diversity and creativity and reducing the opportunity for social change.
I would like to counter that in highlighting one of the things that Yoshi said in standardization. Through that standardization, the method and means of production capitalism made music more accessible to the larger audience. So it means that things through things like iTunes and stuff, music is accessible at like 99p, 79p, stuff like that. And it's stopped being a luxury, because before music was just deemed to be for entertainment purposes, which it still kind of is. That's what we're arguing for, and it can be enjoyed by many people. And also through capitalism, it's allowed many genres to be developed. So, well, through that, so many people can be touched.
Okay, I'd like to draw attention to your point, Tanya, about the fact that capitalism actually generates a future career for a musician. When a musician is potentially going to be signed, the contract's actually written in such a complex jargon. Sometimes the musician won't be able to understand it. There's so many diverse loopholes and sort of flaws within the contract that only really shedding out a whole load of money to pay for an entertainment lawyer can actually run through the contract and actually tell the musician, okay, this is that point, this is what you need to do, this is what they can offer for you. That's very expensive. So for a starting musician, obviously they may not have the money to go for the contract, so ultimately they're facing exploitation. There's so many middlemen within the process of being signed. There's distributors, such people like Apple and Microsoft. I'd like to draw attention to the fact of X Factor. If somebody wins that competition, they're actually tied down to a one-year contract. For example, with Simon Cowell, they are not allowed to go with any other label. They're not allowed to work with any other artist unless it's specified within a contract that they've been given. They're potentially losing their rights. They lose rights to their written material. They lose rights to how they can distribute their music. Ultimately, they lose their whole sort of creative side of being a musician. So this is how organisations such as Musicians Union and PRS try to counteract the capitalistic reign. They work for the musician. They find ways of sort of sifting through complicated contracts. They enable musicians to gain at least 100% royalty from their music, cutting out the middleman completely. I'd also like to pay attention to the fact that in this hegemonistic capitalistic society, women are exploited, and it's horrible. The fact that Miley Cyrus is actually very sexualized, and she's only just of age, but we have this sort of war going on between Adele and Miley Cyrus, where Adele she's not considered to be a sexualized act, whereas Miley Cyrus is. So ultimately, because this society says that sex sells, Miley Cyrus is going to gain a lot more attention, a lot more money, and for that, capitalism is destroying the music industry.
Okay, first I'd like to draw attention to your point about the contracts. Contracts are up for negotiation between the artist and the record company. If in doubt, you can always hire a good entertainment lawyer, or the other option is to read through some examples of contracts and professional advice, which you can find online on websites such as musiccontracts.com, soundonsound.com, leonthompson.com and soundonmusic.org, to name a few. If you do go in unprepared, your sincerity as a musician will be put into question. You know, these people expect you to know what you want and to be able to state it. The less you know, the more susceptible you become to exploitation. As for your income, you need to be aware that there are a lot of people working hard to get your music published, and they also need to be paid. The profit you make has to go towards the people who make your success possible by promoting you. In order to earn more, you have to work at becoming more successful. It's the same with any career. As for women, a woman has a right to refuse any kind of sexualisation. Just as before, a musician has to know what they want from their record company and make that absolutely clear before they sign anything. It is the record company's job to promote your music and get as many people interested as possible. And if you're beautiful and confident, you can use these assets to promote your art. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. A woman has a right to do that as well. It doesn't take away from the music itself. A woman's beauty and attitude will grab the public's eye, and then once you have their attention, you can let the music do the talking. Bearing this in mind, as I said before, this is merely a suggested option. There are many incredibly successful female musicians who opt against using their sexuality as a marketing tool. According to Forbes, Taylor Swift was the second highest paid woman in music in 2012 at $57 million, only $1 million less than the top earner, Britney Spears.
I feel that your use of the word beautiful in this context is a perfect example of the constructs and the hegemonic understanding that society encourages that everyone should feel. So, and is an accurate representation of capitalism as a whole. It's the monetarily sound ideal that is being put as the forefront of the importances in people's mind, rather than the creative control and the intelligence that a musician can put into their work. So, take for example the music video "Blurred Lines" featuring Robin Thicke. The women in there portrayed as being vulnerable, sexually submissive, like not unclothed, as opposed to the sexually aggressive counterparts. It could be argued, as you said, that there are artists who manage to escape from this standard, but the society still dictates that they have to be of a certain standard, or to societies, the supposed way that we are intended to think, for this to come across as fair. And thereby, the creative process being stifled on account of the monetary value being the biggest gain.
But then I would say with that, you have to think about your audience as a musician. If that's what we feel for, whatever market you're trying to sell your music to dictates the image that you have to have, in a way, because we have to give what the market wants. And now we will come together as a marketing team with you as an artist and discuss the best way to position you for success. Because at the end of the day, we can't fake or lie that we're not trying to make money. We're trying to create an industry that sustains itself. And for that to happen, it has to make sense from an accounting point of view. It has to make money. So if your audience wants to see naked women, that's what we're going to give them. Simple as that.
Right, so we've got less than a minute. Did you guys want to summarise each side? Points from each side.
We'll hear what they think.
I would argue against Tanya's point that if if you're going for a market which wants women to be viewed as submissive and meant to be dominating them, then that is just an example of the negativity of the market there. That's not something to be encouraged, it's a really, really negative thing.
Yeah, the very idea that should be the central aspect of where the creative control goes. The idea that capitalism has a good effect on how the system works, but the way that it's been put across is that it's not anything to the artist's understanding that matters. It's more about the artist taking some people and then milk them from what they're worth and try to take advantage of as much money as they can muster.
Okay, that's been 10 minutes.
Yes, well, I think the point that Carly raised, for me, it summarizes exactly what today's industry gives, the opportunity gives for current or upcoming artists. There's so much information out there and so much examples of other artists who've come in with the business savvy head. You have to empower yourself as an artist, because the way business works, if you're ignorant about something, someone is out there to exploit you. Not saying all record labels want to exploit an artist, but if you make it easy for them to do that, they will take that point, because business people love to make the profit, they love to make money, and if you make it easy for us to get money from you, we will do it. But examples of artists like Adele show us that for her, it's about her art, it's not about her image, it's not about anything else. So if, as an artist as well, if you guys make great music, we won't need to worry about how you look or how to sell anything else other than the music. So it's again an opportunity for artists themselves to make sure they invest in building a great product for their audience, rather than relying on other things like your personal life or scandals or anything like that. So it's an opportunity for you artists to bring on the table something worth selling.
Okay, thanks folks. I have some questions. Does it matter if I go first?
You feel free.
Right, okay, so for the pro team, I have some questions. First of all, as a group, you started talking about capitalism, but then you automatically started to get pulled towards the gender question. So I actually think that whilst capitalism and the music industry was the wider context, actually what you were doing was focusing on gender. And I think you needed to have kind of foregrounded that in your initial question, okay? Because what you did do is go through the fairly effective debate, because you didn't actually state this in your question. It felt like you were kind of going elsewhere, okay? So, a number of things. I have an issue with stating that capitalism is there purely for business in terms of the financial distribution. That is, in itself is problematic, because why should the heads of the record labels be the ones that are garnering the most amount of money, and the artists are the ones that come away with the least, when they're the ones effectively doing all the work? So I can see why you've got a Marxist approach here. I would also suggest that whilst you are suggesting about advertising to your main demographic, there are more than one demographics.
Yeah, but then
Do you see what I mean?
the question is, if your music appeals to a certain audience and we are trying to capture that core audience for you.
But you're making an
focus on
assumption.
that.
But you're making an assumption here that men are very one-dimensional and can only be advertised to by naked women.
Oh no, that was an answer to the question Connor
Okay.
raised. But
All I'm suggesting here is that this is. I think it was fairly effectively discussed, but I think that it's problematic to assume that there's only going through one demographic that brings in money. You see what I mean?
we don't agree with that. That's
Okay.
why we spoke of people like Adele as well.
But that's to say that she isn't a construct, but she is a construct. Adele is absolutely a construct, because if you look at Dusty Springfield and you look at Adele, you can see there's a kind of a real template taken from one for the other. So, for the against, I want to know why the X Factor is being used as an example, and I would also question the idea where you said that that sex sells. Sex doesn't sell, women sell.
Yeah, it was more to kind of the idea that's put forward that sex sells. I was trying to.
If sex sells, then we'd be seeing weddings everywhere.
My point wasn't that sex sells. Again, my point was that it's the idea that it's put forward that sex sells, and the idea behind it is that's what it engenders. The media engenders people's minds. That's the only thing that men want, and that women feel that they should perform to those standards.
That's better. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, the Vic video does suggest that he has a large dick, though.